I feel like I'm blacking out. I literally can't even hear my own voice. Louise is not here this week. It feels very real, and my heart rate is skipping around all over the place just talking to you now. And I think that's just an indication of how heavy and raw it all feels. But the real question is, like, I just don't know how much more of this she can take. Hey guys, welcome back to He Said, She Said. I'm Ryan, and sadly, Louise is not here this week. She unfortunately had to go back into hospital almost 2 weeks ago now. And she's had to have another emergency operation in the same tummy area that she's kind of been recovering with since early this year when she had the stoma surgery. Completely unexpected. I was away the weekend when the pain really started to kick in, which is typical. I was away at a sort of family function in Devon. I came back on the Sunday afternoon, and by 7 p.m. that evening, she was rolling around in heaps of pain. And in typical Louise fashion, she tried to ride it out until the morning because she didn't want to, go through anything unnecessary. But it just got progressively worse and worse, and it got to about 3:30, 4 a.m. on the Monday, and had to take her to A&E. And a few hours after that, she was on the operating table. When she's back, which I can't confirm when that will be, I'm hoping that it'll be very soon. I'm sure she will look forward to having this conversation and probably give more detail. But what can I tell you about it? Can't believe that we're back in this situation. It feels very real, and my heart rate is skipping around all over the place just talking to you now. And I think that's just an indication of how heavy and raw it all feels. She's been doing really, really well. So she had her stoma surgery in January this year. And as we've discussed on the podcast before, the adjustment and the way she's accepted that has been incredible. She's continually playing around with nutrition and diet to see how she can improve and perfect that so she feels even better. And she's been doing amazingly with it. She's returned to work in like almost full speed and full fashion, just how she likes it. And, we had heaps of stuff planned. We've got actually Leo's birthday coming up in 9 days. Yeah, 9 days. So everything is crossed, legs, fingers, everything is crossed that she's out before then, because we've got a special family weekend planned for that one. But yeah, so unexpected in many, many ways, and it's a very difficult pill to swallow. I've spent every day for the past 9 days in hospital with her, which has completely broken me. Massive respect to sort of families and friends who are there to support their loved ones, because it is a really difficult role to play. You're super mindful of the energy and the kind of overall presence that you bring to people in those environments, because you've almost got to put a mask on and provide positivity and an upshot to everything. But it's really difficult because if you're anything like me, all I want to do is switch places. I want to get into that bed and just be plugged up to all the wires and tubes and just take the pain for her. But obviously you can't. Her recovery is kind of been up and down. Post-surgery, she was in septic shock, which kind of gives you the severity of how bad things got. So she was heavily medicated. She had all kinds of pipes and tubes and cannulas all over her body. So to see that again in intensive care was completely heartbreaking. And she's now off intensity care unit, which is a sign of progression, so that's good. Tapered off the medication, and yeah, just hoping that we're on the home straight, so she'll be home soon. That's the hope. But yeah, in typical Louise fashion again, she's been so polite and humble to all the staff, thanking people, apologizing to people, which again, I don't know if you remember the episode when I gave you the example of when she was excited for the stoma surgery and she was almost hugging the surgeons before she went in. She's kind of doing all that again. So I can't believe I'm reliving almost the same story, but I am, or we are. But the real question is, like, I just don't know how much more of this she can take, because she's doing so much work in between these bouts of surgeries. It's soul destroying. It takes the wind right out your sails. It leaves you completely dumbfounded because you just don't know why someone would deserve to go through countless bouts of bad health like this. And that's the most difficult part of it, because, you know, I think what I was trying to say with her transition of recovery or journey with recovery, she's gone through the initial septic shock and heavily medicated stage. She's gone through the tapering off the medication and feeling things a lot more physically. Now she's in this difficult mental space because it's knocking on 2 weeks since she's seen Leo. So she's got the mum guilt. She's worried about letting him down. And she's now questioning, what the hell happened? Like, what did I do to deserve this? Nutrition was in check. She was exercising 10 minutes a day. And it's completely unfair that she's had another surgery. So her poor little body that she's been working on to sort of tighten up and build her strength and muscle back up, which she did incredibly well. She's blessed genetically in that sense. She just looks at the weights and she goes, boo, in the best way. Her tummy's been sliced through again. Fortunately for me in this situation, Leo has been incredible. There are questions as to where's mummy, to which I've replied to him saying she's getting some help from the doctors, or she's got a boo-boo, she's just getting some plasters. And without sounding selfish or anything untoward like that, he's kind of taking that and moving on to the next thing quite quickly. Whereas before there would be a lot more questioning, a lot more emotion around it, and there would be a lot more work from my side required to settle him. But he's been generally very settled, which has made my job as, you know, dad at home without mum much easier. And I think because I'm able to then take that information into Louise, she feels a lot more settled as a result of that. I think the worst thing is, you know, when mum and baby are separated, or dad and baby, and you can't really do anything because you're not there, you're not present, you're not in the room. But to know that things are settled at home, I think has helped Louise a lot. And it's definitely helped me, because when you hear your son or daughter say, where's mummy or where's daddy, you know, when you're kind of in the moment of the reality of them recovering from surgery or whatever it is, it's more difficult than I can really articulate, to be honest with you. I'm not trying to skip past the reality. I'm now trying to communicate a bit more carefully, you know, and I'm trying to give him more truth in how I answer him. And he's not even 3 yet, so I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself, but I think it is important that they understand as best they can what the situation is. One thing that I've done differently this time, because the sad thing is that I've had a few experiences of spending time in hospital at her bedside now. I've been super mindful of the energy that I'm bringing to the room, more so than before. I think before I was so overwhelmed and so eager to try and fix things. I was just a busybody. I was trying to absorb responsibility. I was trying to do this, that, and everything, trying to chase down the doctors, the surgeons, trying to get bags of food, trying to clear the tables and make her bed, and everything you can think of, I was trying to do. And that just contributed to me having quite a frantic, frenzied energy about me, which is not helpful. So I've completely flipped the script on that. I'm coming in very calm, and I'm spending all day sat at her bedside, and I still am doing things like we just mentioned, but I'm also playing Andre Bocelli or Frank Sinatra quietly next to her, or Birdsong. I'm like brushing her hair and tying it into like little pineapple things on top of her head. Or I'm sat there sketching. And all these little different approaches that I've had this time, I think has really benefited me in particular, because it's like I'm able to pace my emotions a bit better rather than being super overwhelmed and intense with things. I'm trying to slow everything down, and I'm trying to just be a bit more peaceful. And that's rubbed off on her. She's commented, the nursing staff have commented a bunch of times when they come into the room. They're like, wow, it feels remarkably zen in here, which I'm like, oh my God, well, great, because that's the vibe I'm trying to go for. Hospital and wards and everything that goes with it is, as many people will be able to relate to, there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of hot temperatures, there's lots of activity all around. So I think it's a really good idea to try and slow that down. I remember when she was in before, I bought her those Apple noise cancelling headphones, and I took a photo. Maybe I can add it into the show notes. But I remember I took a photo of her on my way out of the room, and she sat there with her gown on, with these new like silver Apple headphones, and she's got like tears running down her face. And it was just one of those moments that I was like, oh my gosh, just a small thing like that, just to remove the noise with the noise cancelling headphones. It just had such a profound effect and made her cry with happiness. And I was like, oh my gosh. So anyway, I'm kind of all over the place a little bit with what I'm trying to articulate, but I'm just trying to almost offer a little bit of advice to anyone who's going in to visit loved ones in hospital. Just maybe be mindful of the energy that you bring with you, because ultimately, having been through this a few times now, I'm not sure how helpful it is to arrive in a sort of panicked, frenzied state. I think the more calm and collected and just subtly positive you can be, it really does actually lower their frequency as well, because you have to remember they're going through the actual sufferings themselves physically. They're hooked up to all the medication and stuff, so there is a significant role to play. So I guess in conjunction with that, there is some stuff that I'm doing at home in between the moments where I'm not at hospital. So in the evenings or the first thing in the morning, I'm still trying to keep up with, I want to say, habits or rituals. And it might be the early morning training sessions downstairs with a friend, or it might be we actually sometimes we don't actually train, but we sit in these exact chairs and we almost do our own podcast together without the cameras. We just sit and we have a conversation about anything and everything. And actually, I think that's probably the best example of what I'm doing differently this time. Before, I would have just assumed responsibility, got my head down, and not asked for help or not shared anything that I was feeling. Whereas this time, in the last 2 weeks, I've probably trained 3 times, but I've had about 18 different conversations, and that's really quite true. And again, that's just another thing that I've caught myself in the moment as an example of how different I've approached it. And it's all helped me arrive at the hospital in a better mindset. And it's all helped me maintain a better, healthier frequency, which I think is rubbed off on Leo at home. I think it's rubbed off on Louise in hospital. It's allowed me to avoid that burnout, angry, frustrated, resentment, emotional state that I was in before. And it's very difficult to keep a lid on these things when you're in the moment with these traumatic setbacks with health. But having been through one version and now living another version, if you can do something like that, whether it's journaling, reading, chatting, training, you must allocate time to do it, because it will allow you to pace yourself. It will allow you to sustain the hits, because Louise going into surgery almost 2 weeks ago is only really the start of what's about to come. And you've got to be there, not just at the start, but throughout the whole process. So it's really important that you pace yourself. The other thing that I've done differently this time is I've tried to keep things as fun and as normal as possible at home for Leo. And again, if I cast it back to the time when I was at home with Leo and Louise was in hospital before, I probably was saying no to a lot more invitations and things to do, because I think it was more the guilt. I think there was a huge part of me that felt guilty that I was going to do these things without Louise. And I remember I did a few and I couldn't even take photos, or I couldn't send them to Louise because I just felt terrible that she wasn't able to be there and experience it with us. Whereas this time we've had a few engagements, Halloween, and we took him to the Disney store, and there was something that, I took him for like a Sunday roast with a friend. There's been a few other things that I've actually just continued to do, and I'm really glad I've done it, because as difficult as it is to put on a brave face and take them out and have fun when things are not that fun, it's great for Leo because he continues to have a good time. He's having fun. I'm taking photos. I'm actually sharing them with Louise, and she's really happy to see him continuing to have fun. I think some people will actually relate to this point about the guilt. Another example is my parents really kindly, they came up for 4 or 5 nights, I think 5 nights. And at some point during that period, we had, so my parents, we had Louise's dad and his partner, we had Sam and Zara, and we had a really nice family supper on 2 nights actually. And And I can remember this exact scenario playing out years ago with Louise in hospital. And I, along with certain other family members, were really treading on eggshells almost with the whole thing, because we were like, should we be doing this? And then there would be a louder voice in my mind, which would be reconfirmed or backed up by someone like my dad, who would see it for what it is. And really, that's just a really lovely, healthy example of the family coming together as a supportive network to be there for each other. It's not that we're having a jolly party and we're not celebrating anything. What it is just a demonstration of families coming together during a shared struggle. And that shared struggle is my partner, their daughter, my parents' daughter-in-law, whatever it is. We were just pulling together. Again, Ryan of old would have shied away, would have not enjoyed, arguably wouldn't have orchestrated that whole event out of guilt and out of fear, maybe, that a question might come my way of like, how's Louise and how are you? Lean into it. Just allow the family to really pull together, because that's what families are for. They are really designed to be a supportive network. And if you can't call upon that network when things get difficult, when can you? So hopefully next week, Louise will be sat in the chair next to me and she'll be able to share her side of this story with you guys. But I hope that some of my reflections and some of my learnings as we go through this current situation has been helpful to you guys. If you're going through something similar right now, which I know a lot of people are, judging by how busy the hospital is here. So if you listen to this, I hope that a small slice of it has been helpful. Okay, so we've had some really good listeners' messages come in this week, and some of them have been directed straight at me. So I'm going to take this opportunity to try and answer and help with some of this stuff. First one we've had is a voice note, which I'm going to play for you now, and then I'm going to see if I can offer something useful about it.
A question for Ryan. You mentioned in the pilot podcast how you used to lack confidence and struggle to go on double dates because of a lack of confidence, whereas now you will go to 8 out of 10 of them and hold your own. What do you think it's taken for you to get from where you were to where you are now, confidence-wise? And what advice would you give to other people who are perhaps lacking in confidence to be able to get to the point where they sort of accept themselves and are confident in who they are?
Ooh. I think with anything that's difficult in life, whether it's playing sport in front of a live crowd or public speaking or having a difficult conversation with your partner, the more you do those things, the more comfortable you get in those environments and those situations. And I think I took this from a book. It was either The Chimp Paradox or it was the 5 a.m. Club. I think it was The Chimp Paradox. But it's this concept of you go through an experience and it's like you've got a computer hard drive in your brain and you're kind of storing these experiences in that hard drive. And if you go through something bad and it feels really uncomfortable at the time, it's kind of stored in your brain, right? And when you go into that next similar setup, let's use the public speaking scenario. So say if you had an example of a public speaking engagement, which I've got many, by the way. I was best man at my brother's wedding and I did a speech and I was hella nervous. And I think I probably, hopefully rescued it towards the end. But the level of fear that I had going into that speaking engagement was stored in my brain for years, which meant that when I was going into my next public speaking engagement, I was just overwhelmed with that previous experience. And you have to go through those scenarios and you have to almost update that hard drive with a new experience. So you're kind of flushing out the bad experiences with updated, new, positive, oh, that wasn't so bad kind of situation. You got to go through it. So you've almost got to have more exposure to the fire, where it takes a lot of courage, to be honest with you. It takes a lot of courage to then put yourself back in that uncomfortable scenario. But that's where the growth is. That's where the development happens. And that's where you start to feel a lot more confident about your ability in those scenarios. So that's the first thing I would maybe say about that. And then the other thing I would say about this is I'm now 34. I probably went through my early 20s and my teens really not knowing who I am, what I can offer in certain situations, what my values are as a person, what are my morals, what are my code of ethics. I didn't know who I was really. And that really dented and impacted my confidence. So I think what I've done, and this is in more recent years, it's been more of a deliberate, intentional act, but I think there's been some subconscious activity going on somewhere before as well. But the more you can avoid the incessant need to distract yourself with screens and phones and games and socializing, if you can just sit with yourself in your own company more often, and that doesn't need to be literally sit. You can be just by yourself walking, or you can sit in the shower or stand in the shower and just try to hover above yourself, look at your life from a helicopter view, see what sort of lifestyle you want, see what you are as a person, what values you have. And I think this is a really big part of this. Understand what's important to you as a person, because there'll be lots of qualities and attributes that you can start to emulate, even if you don't have them as a sort of inherited quality. You can start to emulate these qualities. I think I took this from my dad in my younger years. You kind of go through experiences, you meet certain people, you cherry pick your whole way through, and you're like, oh, I quite like that about this person, I'm going to try and emulate that. Or you don't like that and you discard it. So I think the more you can sit with yourself, understand what your values are, understand what you can offer, because you definitely can offer something. And it might not be loud comedy, volume, huge presence, or charm. You might be an incredible listener, and you might pick up on some detail that you'll flash back to in conversation, and someone will be like, oh my God, how did you catch that? You really were listening closely, which I think, by the way, is a really, really valuable skill. My brother-in-law next door, Sam, we are not that similar, but I can really respect him. I love him to bits. He's got the presence in the room. He's loud. He's funny. I can be in a room and you probably wouldn't hear me, but I'm there. I've got a presence which is felt differently to his. I listen and pick up on things that he might miss, but it doesn't mean that he's any better or I'm any worse or vice versa. People contribute different things to different scenarios. So I think understand what you value, understand what you like, understand what you can offer, because you can definitely offer something. Stick true to it, be confident and proud about it. Go into those difficult situations as if it's a social setting, update the hard drive, and over time, you become more comfortable, you become more accustomed to it. People start to recognize you, and it might just take that. It might take someone to recognize what you offer. It's like a validation, or someone's acknowledged it, and that might feel amazing, and that might be the turning point for you. Okay, cool. So hopefully that helped. I've got another voice note here from someone else, so I'm going to play this one.
Hi, I just wanted to start by saying thank you and well done for that first episode. It was great. Louise, I read your book, and I've had one baby and I've got another one due. Actually, a C-section booked in for Tuesday. And I suppose just a reflection that I've had, it isn't really a he said, she said at all, but it's just a reflection following the me listening to the podcast of something that Ryan said, and that was about how he wasn't sure that you would be championing him at the kind of start of your relationship. And it just really made me think about, I've been with my partner for, I'm 32 and we've been together 17 years, so half of our lives. And it just really made me think, actually, I don't think I do champion him that much. I think, if anything, I don't know what it is, whether it's a protection thing for him, or whether it's just we've been together so long, and sometimes it's easier to criticise than it is to champion and be proud. But I actually am not sure that it comes natural to me to champion somebody and really be proud of them and put it out there. And we do want it in a one-to-one setting, and I'll often really compliment him and really try and be that person, but in a group, I don't know why, and I think that probably does come down to my childhood too, and how my parents weren't very good, are still not very good communicators, but it was just really, really interesting to hear Ryan talk about that from our perspective, because actually, and it's really given me something that I want to talk to my partner about. I really want to find out from his perspective if he feels I do champion him, because I'm not sure that I do. Yeah, so thank you for that. It's just given me a lot to think about.
Okay. Well, if you think that you don't champion your partner, you can sure enough bet that they also feel that way. So, and this is just my opinion on this, right? So I really genuinely believe that we should make every effort to champion our partner. But I also appreciate that it's quite a difficult thing to do, because if you're listening to this podcast and you're by yourself, maybe as like a little assignment, when you go home tonight, try and give your partner a really authentic, heartfelt compliment, and just try and register if it's difficult to do that, because I reckon a lot of people actually struggle to do it, and I wonder if it's just the whole communication piece, and talking from the heart is difficult, and I wonder, wrapped up within that, if paying a compliment or saying something lovely, if that's part of it, if that's part of the same struggle. I think it might be. I find it hard. I can do it with Louise now, but that's because I've done a ton of work on how I communicate with her, and I know her love language, which is words of affirmation. Another thing that was interesting about that voice note is you felt that you could do it quite comfortably on a one-on-one scenario, but then in a group dynamic, you felt you couldn't do it. I don't necessarily have the answer as to why that might be. I don't know if it's because you've got maybe a slight fear of being judged by friends or peers in that environment. And I don't know if that's a certain insecurity around that, or if that's a reflection of your environment in terms of what your social group dynamic is and how positive they really are. But I'm maybe going a little bit deep with this one. But the fact that you can do it one-on-one is arguably better, because that's where it's felt and heard a lot more. Having said that, it can really chop you at the knees if you ice your partner in a group setting, and I have felt that before. In like business meetings with myself and Louise and other co-founders with different things, if you're not on the same page and the delivery can kind of like be very blunt and can ice you, it feels terrible. I've got many examples of that, by the way, because Louise is a very passionate person. But I think ultimately I do now know that she does champion me a lot more than I even realized. It does really feel great when your partner backs you up in situations, because it is a partnership and you want to feel like you are a really good partnership. You're a team. You don't want to be on different pages. You don't want to be on opposing sides. You want to be... I personally love it when Louise backs me up and kind of like really champions me. And I'm trying to think of an example of where she's done it recently. I can't think of one, but there has been many. Oh yeah, the episode when she was calling me the father, which was like a little bit jarring in many ways. But that is an example of Louise championing me and my parenting style with Leo, and it felt great. I was like, cool, okay, thank you for acknowledging that and speaking it into the world. She also trusted me to do this episode solo today, which is, again, her championing me enough to do it, which feels great. I've probably ballsed it up, but it's been great. I've got an example with my relationship with Sam on this, which I think might be quite useful to just share. So I'm in my 8th year of my relationship with Louise, which is quite a long time. And in the first few years, my relationship with Sam is nothing like it is now. We've completely bonded, probably through shared struggles with Louise, but there's nothing I wouldn't do for the guy now. I love him to bits. But before, we had this relationship which was very superficial, and in social settings and family scenarios, Sam used to humiliate me quite often. And it's only as a result of a 3 or 4 hour conversation over lunch where I just had to really tell him how he was making me feel in those situations, which was difficult for me to reveal. But ever since I've done that, it's contributed to a shift in dynamic with our relationship. But at the time, because Sam is the funny guy and he is the entertainer, he was probably like not really skipping a beat and not hesitating and assuming that I could also step into that same character. So we'd be sat at a table having Christmas lunch, I think, one time, and it went quiet, and all of a sudden he springs into character and he's like, everyone, and he taps his glass, gets everyone's attention. And I'm like, oh my God, where's this going? Has he got like an engagement announcement or something? No, he was like, just everyone put your forks down. Ryan's going to tell a joke. in front, and I was quite new. I was quite new in the family at this point, and it made me feel terrible. I think we styled it out, but it lasted a while, like in my system. And I was like, "You bastard! Why did you do that to me?" And it's happened a few times. And I think my point is, you've really got to communicate that with your friend or your partner or your family member, because they might not even be aware of the damage they're doing. They might not see that it's an uncomfortable scenario for you. They might just think, and this is exactly the case with Sam, by the way. He thought that he was being just inclusive, and he thought that he was just kind of, because Sam was like focusing on me and no one else in that moment, that was him being like, I just want to get you involved, mate. I want to have some banter with you. But his delivery and his approach, for me at the time, was too jarring. And that might be the case for someone listening. It might be that your partner uses you as, I don't know, the ending to every joke in every social situation that you guys are in. And you might hear this and you might be thinking, holy shit, that's me. I don't really enjoy these jokes that he keeps telling me or she keeps telling about me. So I think it's important that you voice it up, because it's an easy thing to fix. It's a really easy thing to fix. And when you start to feel the other side of that coin, where they do start to champion you, it brings you together so much more. And like, ultimately, all we should be doing as people and as humans is just being nice to one another and just treat other people how you'd want to be treated yourself. And that might sound like a thing that your mother used to tell you as a school kid, but it's true. It's true. Just be nice and treat people how you'd want to be treated. So start championing your partners and friends and family people, because it's great and I'm here for it. Okay, so I'm going to do another one. This is the last one for this episode. And this one is a written question, or maybe a dilemma. Don't know from who. It's an anonymous message. Hi, Ryan and Louise. I'll take this one, Louise. This is on me. I've been with my boyfriend for now nearly 2 years, and I absolutely adore him. He's the only boyfriend that makes me feel safe, happy, beautiful, pretty, and secure, which is a lot for someone who is crazy insecure about almost everything. Okay. I often find that when I go into a relationship/situationship, I give 150% and completely dedicate myself to that person, and then I end up either getting hurt or I get bored after 2 years. I don't think I've reached that stage with this one, and he's the only person I could see myself settling down with and having a family, but I am concerned if it is 100% right and working out how you know that. I'm at the stage now where I'm still young, 27, but I'm starting to think about future, because I know I want to settle down soon and would like to have been with my partner for a good amount of time before getting engaged. Have you ever felt doubts before you got engaged, and do you have any advice and feelings on the above? Okay. So this is one where Louise would like to get involved with, but let me just try and give you a concise off the bat answer. I think doubts never really go away in a relationship. There are going to be days, maybe weeks in your journey together where you might be slightly held up with some reservations about certain things. And it's a good example about, our friends compatible? Does my family like really buy into this person? That's all valid, and it's all stuff that we've all been through. That's super relatable. But I think it's actually okay, because ultimately, I think there is this fairy tale movie Hollywood version of falling in love with people. And I was speaking about it with a friend before this. And it might happen to you. You might be one of these lucky few in the world who, you're sat in a cafe in France, or you're riding the subway in New York, or you're standing outside a shop in Madrid, and you lock eyes with someone, and it's like a magnetized, overwhelming draw, and you completely fall head over heels for these people. And it does happen. It does happen. But very rarely does that happen. Most of the time, you'll meet someone, it might not be love at first sight, and arguably, if I'm fully honest, I didn't love Louise at first sight. It wasn't like an immediate head over heels, I want this person. In my situation, I grew to love Louise because of the qualities and the person that she is. And I started to look at how she interacted with people in any situation, at work, at the bus stop, on the tube, outside of a creche or in the gym. She would talk to everyone in a really humble, really polite, just lovely way. And that was one of the first things that kind of like turned the kind of handle for how I felt about this person. But I think what I'm trying to maybe suggest is, relationships require a lot of input from both sides, a lot of compromise. There's so many things that we don't want to do in a relationship. You don't want to go 4 hours to a lunch with grandparents and cousins, but you do it because it's a compromise, and you know that actually the impact and the ramifications of not doing it is going to cause other issues. So you might be lucky to find instant love head over heels, or you're going to find yourself someone that really excites you in many ways. And in order to make it work, you're going to realize that you need a lot of compromise, a lot of respect. You need a lot of patience. Those doubts might not ever go away. But I think, again, this relates to a previous episode. If you can lock in and be loyal and commit to the relationship and you're in it for the long run, there's going to be experiences, there's going to be things that connect you and gel you in different ways. You end up building a life together and sharing memories, and the doubts that enter your mind on a random Wednesday afternoon, it just washes out. And then you realize, oh my gosh, I've got an amazing thing right in front of me. So to your point in the message about you want to be really sure about, settling down, and your age was a concern, and you have to look at your relationship and you have to make a decision or feel confident that you're in it for the right reasons. You don't want it to be a relationship of convenience because you're worried about age and, biological clocks and things like that. You either really love the person or you really don't. You're either really willing to compromise and make it work, or you're really not. So I think you have to take, again, that aerial top-down view of the relationship and make a call on it. It's very rare that, like, the vision we have in our minds as younger versions of ourselves, and this I think relates to a male's mind and a female's mind. It's very rare that it plays out the way that you vision it or plan it. Life's got a really crazy way of taking you down different routes and pathways, and things happen that are unexpected, whether that's health concerns or kids, or you move house, or you get dogs, or you meet someone unexpectedly. Life's got all these curveballs that will come at you. So maybe don't put so much pressure on the vision that's in your mind. Maybe be a little bit more flexible with it and just allow life to take its course, because that's the fun part, I think. I don't think there's any perfect moment or any perfect timing for these major milestones that we go through as couples. I think ultimately just identify someone you really respect and love. Throw yourself into it. Respect, compassion, compromise. And enjoy the ride. Not the ride. That sounds sexual. Enjoy the adventure, the partnership that you have. Yeah. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble because this has been a particularly difficult episode for me to film. My heart rate has probably been at 170 the whole time. But I'm going to, from here, go and see Louise in hospital. I'll tell her about this. She'll be super excited, hopefully. And next week, hopefully, guys, she will be here. And we'll get back to the he said, she said. I'll kiss the lobster now, and then I will see you next week. Oh, it doesn't feel quite as fun without Louise being there for that one. But we roll. Thanks, guys.